Computer scientist.
That was not what I wanted to do. But we're going to do some tech
support.
We're going to do some tech checks first, just to make sure everything's running.
Yeah. Especially the sound. And I'm gonna start putting this link out to
everyone,
more people.
No, geez, I've been so exhausted because former teacher used CodeHS. I didn't want to change a lot of things, and
I use CodeHS
just for there are some things about CodeHS I really don't like.
Same. Also, again, I know that you don't talk much about personal life and all that. I don't either, but if my mannerisms give me away, I am bisexual.
Oh.
I don't know if that does give away by anything, but
the reason I don't I have my camera on and I don't want it on.
Yeah, let me turn mine off too.
The reason I don't talk about a lot of that here is because it's not relevant, and honestly, the past few months have been exhausting.
No, yeah, it's just insane out there.
Okay.
But yeah, the main thing is just should I mute myself?
Oh, I'm trying to see if we have sound on the video. Which sounds like...
Well, let me see. Is there supposed to be music playing here?
The video is quiet again. All right. So since the video's... And you might want to mute your...
Yeah, let me mute.
I was gonna say, when it's not... If you're playing it, you might want to mute your mic. So we do have an issue with the video. So I'm going to stop sharing. We want system audio to be shared. And let's try this again.
There's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone between cities.
So I can hear that.
And let's try this again. All right, looks like we're good. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am the Mad Computer Scientist. On this channel, I like to discuss math, computer science, and technology topics that are of interest to me. On Friday nights, I like to do something a little different and just go over things that I think have bad logic. Now, I know maybe you're a little sick of Terrence Howard, but we have a guest joining us tonight who has had a lot to say about Mr. Howard and his, let's say, unique take on math. And tonight we're going to look over the announcement for his drone contest. Tonight I have joining me James De La Pena. Sorry, I mispronounced that. De La Pena.
De La Pena. Yep. Hey, everybody. I consider myself the web's first and foremost expert on Terrence Howardology and Terryology. If you're not familiar with my channel, it bears my name. Really happy to be here. Happy to be taking some time to make fun of Terrence Howard this evening. And as was mentioned by Mad Computer Scientist here, this is basically the announcement of Terrence Howard's drone contest. He did it on some live stream that is still a mystery to both of us. We're not sure who originally hosted this live stream. It seems to be lost somewhere in the internet. But you'll see a guy come on and a few other people come on introducing Terrence Howard, and you'll see Terrence Howard, of course, embarrass himself, and that's what we are here to cover.
And for those of you who haven't heard on Terrence Howard, he was largely off my radio until he came on to Joe Rogan earlier this year to announce to the world that 1 × 1 = 2. Now, this is the kind of bizarre conspiracy theory that I just love. And of course, his math proof was solid gold, if not correct. So
there might be some copyrighted music here in the live stream starting soon, so we might want to fast forward a little bit.
All right, we can get away with about 12 seconds While we're doing that, if you would take a second to go subscribe to James's channel. Why am I on prime time? That's not where we want to be. Sorry, I did something wrong there.
You're good.
There we go. That's another channel I subscribe to that can have some interesting takes on things. All right, let's go back a little bit. So this is where we're going to start. I think I just asked you to subscribe to James De La Pena's channel. Please also take a minute to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. If you find this content useful, share it out. And hopefully after I get some things done, including building a decision tree to predict housing prices off of a data set, I will get to some things I need to get to, like filing my taxes for this year, and of course, putting out some more educational content, which is more what I want this channel to be about.
Let me also throw out one thing here. As far as I know, we are both on spring break.
Well,
yeah.
Spring
For the
break,
most part.
spring break starts this Friday, and for the college goes next week. For where I work, I also get a spring break, but that's a couple weeks later.
What is up, you guys? It is Sunday afternoon, and we got a little something different for you today. No, it is not time for Q&A, because I am not alone today on my live stream. Let me ask you a question. What would your reaction be if let's just say a major celebrity said they'd come up with a new form of math, a new form of physics, a geometry that would change the way that people saw the world? What would you do if that same person said that they wanted to put up $25,000 to help develop a new kind of multi-rotor? Well, I'll tell you what I would do. I would say, please come on my live stream and tell me more about that. And that is what we are going to do today. Today, I have a special guest. It's special to me, although he portrays himself as just another guy. That's true, too. But we have a special guest, Terrence Howard. The actor is how most of you probably know him. But I'm going to let
Well, I wish that's how I knew him.
him introduce himself, how he prefers to be introduced today.
Purple rhymes with orange. Decision trees are evergreen as long as the data is.
In just a second. And the reason we're here today is because he is putting up $25,000 of his own money to help develop a new kind of drone to his specifications.
Let me jump in here. Let me jump in. $25,000 might seem like a lot of money to most of us that, whatever. To develop a drone, to like actually pay people and engineers and people that develop software to actually build a drone from the ground up in this weird design that's like super ineffective and inefficient, that's not a lot of money. And you'll hear it a little bit later on in this. He mentions that people that are joining his live are complaining that he's underballing them. It's not enough money to develop a drone. Just want to throw that out there.
I would also like to point out on this channel, there is a stream where I go through part of Terrence Howard's Joe Rogan appearance with someone with a PhD in physics who just says everything Terrence Howard is saying about physics is meaningless.
Further ado, let me hand it over to Mr. Terrence Howard. How are you doing, Terry?
I'm really good.
Well, he does have an impressive hat collection.
And a lot of like little toys that he likes to play with, like one of the which is sitting right in front of him, which almost looks like a pentagram.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joshua, for having me on your show, and for my friends. I see Drew just came in.
Oh, Drew's here. What's up, Drew? Yeah, we have a bunch of people here. Terry, you're here. And we also have your friend Chris Seeley, who, Chris, you said you are an industrial engineer. Is that right?
So that is Chris Seeley.
Industrial design.
That is basically, that's basically, as far as I know, the guy that does all of his software engineering for him, the guy that does all his Blender animations for him, this guy that looks a little homeless, that is Chris Seeley.
I just want to say with that look, it looks like he lost his calling in life, being a Unix administrator.
The word engineer carries certain connotations that are, yes, industrial
Just say something when you want me to stop, because I've turned this down a little bit.
design, and you've been working with Terry on this project. We also have Mr. James Pellegrini, Scarecrow.
Oh my. He just looks like a villain.
We got like the whole circus here.
FPV, who, among other things, worked on the photography for the website.
Yeah, he looks like a villain in a bad Supernatural knockoff.
Probably has the best looking camera out of any of us right now. And is going to be talking to us later about who has already joined the competition. And there is Mr. Drew Camden. Drew, I mean, we just couldn't do it without you, man.
Yeah, that's right.
So let me by the way, I will be monitoring the chat, keeping an eye on the chat, taking questions, but maybe not like normally my live stream is 100% questions, but so maybe not 100% today. And we are going to be focusing those questions on the Linchpin project and the contest. I'm sure that there are many, many questions you guys would love to ask Terry if given the opportunity, but this is not the place for any question you might imagine. We're going to be focused on questions related to the contest. So,
Josh,
yes, sir.
One person needs to be
definitely don't ask him what 1 times 1 equals.
From Argos Brew, who has been...
Oh, for those of you who haven't read The Masterpiece, which is available on tcotlc.com, go read 1 times 1 equals 2. It's hilarious.
One of my all-time favorite books.
Me also from the inception of bringing this out to the world, and really was responsible for me becoming aware and starting to work with you guys at Rotor Riot and made these introductions. So he's going to be on the call as well.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm in the dark, kind of a fan.
There we go.
But
I'm real. He's audio, and later we're going to get some screen sharing from him, but not no video. Yeah, thank you, DJ. I hear from the chat Terry's a little quiet. Let me turn your volume up there, Terry. I need a producer. Terry, for the
1 2 1 2 1 2.
You're good, man. Terry, the question I want to open with is, I like to ask everybody this who gets into FPV, but especially people who maybe aren't known first and foremost for being an FPV. What was your first exposure to FPV that sort of made you go, oh my God, this is something I have to be a part of?
I'm willing to bet right now at this point that Terry's racking his brain trying to figure out what FPV stands for.
I'm trying to remember what FPV stands for, but they will say it in a couple seconds here.
It's a first-person view of when you're doing cameras on drones.
Oh, I was going to say I should have...
Like I came across the scene a lot later than most people have come across something. When I was a kid, my great-great-grand...
Really? I understand you invented VR, which was invented the year before you were born.
He invented it in utero.
Yes. But he does remember the uterus, so...
Grandfather, he was in the service, and he would always speak about these unmanned vehicles that he would took a part in the 50s, but it was stuff that was top secret. He couldn't even really speak about it. And so when I first saw UFOs, I always thought, oh well, or the idea of UFOs, I always thought, oh, that's my great grandfather. We call him great daddy. He was talking about these things. Then as an adult, when I was introduced to the FPV community,
Terry also does not understand like that you can mute yourself when you're on stream, because apparently he's got like birds chiming in the background or something.
Listen, when I hear stories like this, it contributes to my idea that something is chemically unbalanced, and I think he might need some antipsychotics. Now, it is possible his grandfather was working on radio-controlled vehicles. They were used during World War II. But somehow I doubt this story.
saw the lynch, looked at the linchpin, and I was like, wait a minute, well, what would happen, if I put props in each one of these pentagonal spaces, and how it.
He also does not know how to turn off his notification noises.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I do that too, but it's like, this is a bad idea, and a lot of people who understand physics better than I do have explained why it's a bad idea. Because it makes the drone harder to control.
How it would behave. And then I began talking to DJ, and he turned me on to Rotor Ride, and I saw Drew's work and saw him go to the top of some tower and climb down some in between space, like 200 feet, it seemed like, that you couldn't even get to. And I remembered having dreams when I was younger of being able to fly and not having any limitations. And I said, wow, that would be great to see something.
He had dreams about being able to fly.
I met with Chad and came down to Washington to meet a number of the different people that were really passionate about the FPV and what was taking place with the FAA. And, we kind of locked horns and figured out ways in which we could help each other. And therefore, now we have the competition that Chad and that Drew said would be great for their community, because these were the most innovative people within the world of flying, not just first person view, but, there's engineers and different pilots.
Is he wearing long johns?
What is he? Let's take a second. What is he wearing? What exact? There's like a vest.
Yeah, it looks like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it looks like a vest. Something underneath it looks like long johns.
It does. And then on top of that, it's like some kind of Hawaiian or island type of shirt. He looks like he's wearing a lanyard of some sort.
Yeah, and a vest with. His vest has a collar.
A very prominent collar, and the hat. He's got hats for days.
Is it?
Love it.
I don't know.
If he was on, what's it called? America's Best Top Model, or a runway or something, like that would be more up his alley here, I think, than a drone contest.
Maya, you're the one who introduced me. I think it was it Bryce Ryden or something like that, where I told you the guy had a wonderful context-free grammar because nothing he said made sense in English.
Because he doesn't have any context. That's the issue.
Oh no, I was thinking it's like if you think of this as a context-free grammar, this program is really impressive.
From all different fields in the thing of flying. So, I'm a newbie to FPV, but the idea of wanting to fly, I think that's innate in every human being or any creature on the planet.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong here. But is he saying he's going to use this drone so he can fly?
He's like, how I'm real experienced with, I want to fly. I had dreams of flying, and that's what puts me in a position. It's so funny because everyone else, if you look at their backgrounds, they have like drones hanging around, and then his only qualification is, I've wanted to fly too.
But yeah, if you want to fly a drone, just go buy one. They're not that expensive.
And he's got a lot of money. He made a lot of money from, that one Marvel movie before they fired him.
Well, he's done other movies. He was on Empire. I'm not going. Yeah, he was in Mr. Holland's Opus. He's a good actor. I'll give him that.
He's not bad.
Wow.
He's not bad.
Ultimately, wants to be able to fly.
Yeah, this is one of the things that we've talked about in fighting remote ID. That FPV hobby is about more than just kids flying toys. It is about people pushing the boundaries of what is possible in terms of technology and physics. And it feels like that's something that you're trying to do with your concepts.
All right, note to Terrence Howard fans, pushing the boundaries of physics and math means that the physics and math have to actually be possible and consistent.
Yeah, they actually have to make sense. And he's saying, it's so weird because when you hear them talk to him like he just did now, they're kind of talking to him like he's a child, and very appropriately, because he doesn't know anything about drones. He doesn't know anything about anything.
I mean, we all have to start somewhere, but
of the linchpin, and what then this contest is sort of intended to inspire people to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, as human beings, even though we consider ourselves to be separate and individual and have very distinct and original ideas or thoughts, but literally, you know, when one person within the species comes up or sees something new, then everyone within the species, you know, shares that idea, whether they're conscious of it or not.
Wait. Where is he getting this from? So, like, okay, if mad computer scientist out there has an idea, the idea is all of a sudden in my brain now. That doesn't make sense to me. What do you think?
listen, if people, I don't know, if people all of a sudden knew what snarky comment I was thinking, I'm not sure they would appreciate it, especially if it's directed at them. But yeah, he said this before, and he said something weird with mice like this too.
I don't know what it's some sort of weird spiritual. He gets real like new agey in his thoughts. I'm not, and you know what? Here's a big debate out there. It's like, is all of this a result of him maybe like taking a heroic dose of some psychedelic? Because it kind of seems like it, the way that he talks.
Well, it could be. I mean, my personal thought has been that this is an untreated mental illness for a while. Because this does seem like the thinking of someone with schizophrenia or a similar disorder.
So when we push our boundaries ourselves, we're not just expanding our own immediate area that we're existing in. We actually expand it for all of humanity and for all the creatures involved in it. And so we have to use that imagination.
You know, I don't know if any of you know who Morg is, but I would love to see a debate between this guy and Morg. I mean, Morg's math is a little better, but he's just as far out there.
And we have to use that instinct, because that's what got us to life in the first place, is following the imagination of what could be possible, and the instinct and the drive to never let it go, no matter where it turned, which leads us to, you know, the common factor of everything.
Listen, if you never let it go, you won't follow the advice of Elsa.
You can hear speaking of that, you can hear probably Frozen playing in the background. I can hear like little children playing. Like he doesn't even seem like he's using a mic. He's definitely not in a soundproof room. His notifications go off. He's boomer. Like, this is like boomer etiquette. He's got boomer Zoom etiquette is what he's got.
I think he's Gen X, but yeah.
Because if you're going to be affected by all things, then you have to recognize where you are connected to all things. And so that led me to trying to find a divisible number by which everything in the universe would dance or operate with. And
okay, I got it. I know the number which everything is divisible by. 1.
Yes, that works.
There you go. I solved it. He keeps talking about the universal factor of everything. Yeah, it's called 1.
Turned out to be, you know, what happens when 4 bubbles meet or 4 forces meet at a given point. That was
what happens when 4 forces meet at a given point depends on whether or not the forces are in equilibrium.
What is that? What does that even mean? When 4 he said bubbles first. When 4 bubbles meet, when 4 forces meet. Okay, gravity. What forces is he talking about? Again, context free. He's not making any sense because he lacks context.
Oh, the person I was talking about was someone, I think his name was Brighton Rice or something like that.
The highest,
who goes a lot faster, and I'm like, and I was trying to like figure out what he was talking about, and then I realized nothing he's saying is making any sense. And then I'm like, oh yeah, it's a context-free grammar.
pressure condition, and it just turned out that it made the linchpin, but also began to answer a number of other questions.
Now the linchpin is that. Hold up that shape again. The linchpin is your name for that shape, which is geometrically, it is a collapsed dodecahedron. So when people hear you talking about that, that's what you mean.
Correct.
And
Correct. Let's pause for a second. So that shape, which he thought he made up, which is it's actually a collapsed dodecahedron. And oh my God, guess what? The dodecahedron is one of the 5 Platonic solids. Terrence Howard's gone on and talked shit about Platonic solids, like for years. He hates Platonic solids. He's like, oh, everything's made up of straight lines and you can't do things with. Guess what you're holding up, Terry? It's got straight lines. It's made of straight lines.
So I know we have at least 1 or 2 college-educated people in this chat. So I want to know if you remember, if on the first day of the college classes related to your major, that the first thing they went over was the Platonic solids. I seem to have missed that part. I don't know. Maybe I was absent that day.
Significance to you, and that is why you've created this contest to make a drone specifically in that shape. I do want to say to the people in the chat, there are people in the chat asking some questions about the technical nature of the contest and so forth. We are going to get to that, but I just want.
Oh, I would love to see Terrence Howard write some technical specifications. It'll probably be just as good as his math proofs.
I want to sort of feel out a little more, Terry, where you're coming from and what your motivation is. What is it that you said? You said when people see something happen, then it sort of expands their mind and their philosophy. What is it that you are hoping people will realize, or come into their consciousness through this contest and through the linchpin drone and so forth?
Well, the competition is more from a very selfish place, a narcissistic place. I know that I have.
He said the quiet part loud. He's like, oh, well, this contest is it's really just me being a complete total narcissist, and I have really no expertise at all, but I know y'all do, so let me just kind of latch onto that.
Well, those who know me from my old channel, and those of us who have lived in the United States for the past couple months, I think we're all at least finding it refreshing that he's admitting to narcissism. Dane, if you would. Actually, you can't link it, but I'll give you a wrench if you can link it.
I would love to read that. I've been doing a peer review on my own channel. Shameless plug. But yeah, if you go to my channel, I've been doing peer reviews on his proof. As a mathematician, again, as a specialist and expert in mathematics, breaking down everything that's wrong with his proof, and then just like the really weird stuff that he puts in his book that doesn't have anything to do with anything. One of which is he hates the Platonic solids, yet his drone is based on them. And he just starts mixing a lot of different fields of physics and chemistry with, I don't know, what is it? Like New Age, kind of almost like religious kind of stuff. I think he did actually start his own religion. The funny thing here is that his book is linked on his website, tcotlc.com. And that stands for the Church of Truth, Love, and Consciousness. And I think that is actually Terrence Howard's cult, his religion. And it's funny because I always make fun of it because it's got the O is standing for of, and he still puts it in the title, and then puts the. But yeah, everyone that wants to go, please, everyone, go read this book, tcotlc.com. You will not be disappointed. You will laugh your ass off.
Hey, all great math treatises, I don't know why I couldn't pronounce that word, start with a story about how the author was conceived.
And what song was playing in the background?
Yes. Sorry, yes, that's Dane. If you could link the book. I gave you a wrench so you could do that.
A gift towards certain things, like my attention to geometry. that's my gift, to look at things beyond
What a shame you didn't pay any attention to basic math.
on the obvious and discern a possible outcome from it. My gift wasn't in engineering. My gift.
Obviously.
You mean your gift wasn't in engineering? Is that why you didn't go to Pratt for it? Or was that because Pratt didn't offer that program when you went there?
Wasn't in designing flight controllers. But I do know that since I was not classically trained in geometry and all these things, and gained an understanding of something that seems to have an application to everything within our given universe, then the person that would be capable of building the flight controller wouldn't necessarily have 95 degrees behind his name. It's nice if
Wait, 95 degrees?
What does he mean 95 like, okay, 95 degrees as in like a 90-degree angle is a right angle? Or does he mean like someone has 95 college degrees? Because that would also be ridiculous.
I think he meant patents, because that was his claim.
Oh, that's right. What is it? 90. Oh, I got 97, 95 patents. Yeah, go look them up. There's a Google patent search and you can look up Terrence Howard. I think he has like maybe 5 or 6, most of which are for children's toys. I'm not lying about this. Children's toys, and the other of which are for jewelry in the shape of his collapsed dodecahedron, which he calls the linchpin. And the other patents were completely abandoned.
Yeah, and VR was invented the year before he was born.
If they do have that. But I figured it would come more so from the heart and from the spirit. And later on, if we get the time, I'll say how these pictures initially came into my mind. But I figured I would find within this community, somebody who would become a part of our team.
Somebody who will do all the work for me.
So we can continue to grow this into everything that it's possible. So it's really selfish because I really want to find talent. The 25,000.
Well, if you want to find talent, don't do what it takes to alienate it.
It's so weird because like after this contest ends and I think he goes on like a field trip to Uganda to try to scam them, the entire country. And he goes, yeah, I invented a new form of flight. No, you didn't. You held a contest and you found people that were actually qualified to invent a new form of flight. That's a weird way of saying it.
But
and he didn't do any of this. He outsourced the talent, and he's admitting it right here.
But he didn't invent a new form of flight. Multi-rotor flight existed before Terrence Howard built his drone.
You're right. That's true. He all he did was make it much, much more difficult to fly because of the way it's angled and the motors. Yeah, like he just made it a lot more challenging.
$1,000 is there as an attractor, say, come on, but here's basically an interview and audition,
Yeah.
The future.
Drew, let me flip to you here and ask you when you first heard about this contest, what effect do you think it can have on the larger FPV community?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, there's a reason to be involved in this. I mean, I've seen people who are inspired by Terry's philosophy and his vision, and the minute they hear about it, they're like,
oh, sadly, I've seen people who are inspired by it too.
I know. They're currently, eating flies in an institute somewhere.
And I even had to tell someone that's like, it's your job to mangle this word salad back into English.
Like, I want all in on this.
Yeah.
And there are other people who don't have that reaction and who are more interested in the technical challenge. Speaking just for myself, I can say that I think that there's potential to grow FPV, to expand sort of what people see as the hobby is capable of. And I'm curious, what you see as the potential.
So
You know,
I guess what I would say is, my enjoyment of FPV is pretty focused around high performance sport flying, but that's not all FPV is. When I first got into drones, I didn't really set out to be a great pilot. I was doing all sorts of tinkering things. I was into 3D printing. I was, dabbling, wanting to get into CNC.
Oh, that's a dangerous path. It might get you into Linux.
I just wanted to make stuff, and drones like had this intersection. So I used to be more into the hobby from kind of the maker side of things. And I used to want to play with like autonomous flight. And I'm like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool to make a fleet of drones that would just like orbit my house and be solar powered, like all this crazy stuff. I never really did much any of that because at some point I got bitten by the piloting bug, and that's where my focus went. But that's not everyone's case. I think what's so cool about this hobby is there are so many different ways to enjoy it, and it brings different minded people together. So you can have someone like me that's, I just want to fly. I just want to make my power loops as good as possible. Or you can have someone that just wants to build. I want to try different things. I want to make the arms skinnier, just the hell of it. Oh, they break. Now I want to change it. Right. And I think that the FPV community, as a subsect of the greater drone community, are some of the most innovative and the fastest iterating people. They move fast. I mean, like the product life cycle in FPV, it's like 3 months is a year. Everything happens so fast, and this is a pretty out there idea. And I thought if there was any group that could iterate on this, that could make headway on this in a fast way.
I wonder how he's using iterate here, because it doesn't mean what he thinks it means.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Iterate means to loop, to do something over and over again. I think he means expand on this, or elaborate might be what he means.
I mean, I feel like I should make a bad recursion joke, but you've heard it before.
It would be the FPV community, and that would be a cool opportunity to bring to them. And that for someone, it could be like a really big deal, and I do think that not everyone's going to get it. And there could be thousands of people that see this and like, I just want a power loop. I don't get it. But if you can find that one person that gets bitten by the linchpin bug and wants to throw themselves into it, it could change their life and, give them an opportunity to work on their passion. I'm blessed to get to work in my passion. I get to work on what I love every day, and this could be that for someone else,
Was that the video, or were you trying to say something?
No, it was actually the guy that's running the live that we're commenting over was kind of commenting on it. But it's interesting. I did want to say this because, I agree with this totally. He says, I worked with my passion. You can see the background. He's into drones, and he's doing what he loves. I, as a mathematics educator, because my field is really in mathematics education and computer science education, and I like doing what I'm doing. And I feel like everyone, should have the opportunity to do that. I think out of all the people in this thing that we're watching, this live, Terrence Howard is the one standing in all their way. He has no idea what he's doing, and everyone sort of like tries to tiptoe around him because he's a famous actor and he's, been in Mr. Holland's Opus, and they're just almost trying to pander to him, and it seems like really sad.
I have to feel that's like working for Elon Musk.
Let's speaking of working on your passion and getting bit by the bug, James, I'd like to switch to you here, because I originally,
and I am not, despite the rumors, slated to be cast in the next remake of Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes. I'm sorry, but I could see this guy playing Mr. Dark. And for those of you who haven't read the book, Something Wicked This Way Comes is a dark fantasy written by Ray Bradbury. There was a movie based on it called Dark Carnival.
I thought I need some photographs for the website. And James is a great photographer. I said, James, do you want to be involved in this? And you got involved in this on so much more than a professional level. And I wonder if you'd like to speak to that a little bit.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so you just kind of pulled me in. You said, hey, there's this thing going on, and we need some photography. Would you like to be involved? And I kind of stopped saying no to things. And
that needs to be like in the bio of people that work with Terrence Howard. It's like, hey, why do you work with Terry? I just stopped saying no to stuff. Sorry, Matt, computer scientist, if you're speaking, you are currently muted.
Sorry, I was muted because I was blowing my nose.
Oh, you're good. The thing is, though, like this guy might be the funniest of the bunch because, again, yes, he does look like a 1930s villain. He looks like he could be wearing like one of those like classical robber outfits with like a sack with like a dollar sign on it. But he seems the least enthusiastic out of everyone here. He just kind of got roped into this. Someone was like, hey, you want to do some photography? And then all of a sudden he's part of this big drone design contest.
And it just occurred to me, he kind of looks like Snidely Whiplash from Dudley 2 Right.
Like my theme for the year. So even though I'm greatly overworked, I was like, I got to at least hear, what this is about. And you introduced me to the team, and I found out what the project was all about. And this just this sort of marries just a number of things that have always been of great interest to me, from not just from tinkering and art, but also, the geometric, everything surrounding the geometry and how it interrelates with the world as we experience it. All of it is of great interest.
You can tell that he really can't think of what to say.
To me, so this is this is a dream project for me because it satisfies all of my fascinations all in one spot, and then to be surrounded by such a talented team.
And sorry, I just realized I was muted. I would love to see this guy get together with Jordan from Spirit Science.
Oh God.
Because that would just be hilarious.
Of just free-minded, openly thinking individuals who are just wizards. I am a muggle amongst the wizards here.
Oh, I'm not sure I would say that, but
the work that everyone does is just mind-blowing on a daily basis. So
all right, well let's get a little more down into the nitty-gritty of the linchpin drone and the contest, because some people in the chat are saying this is just so let's define it for people who may not have read the terms and so forth. The idea is to create a drone in the shape of the linchpin that can not just fly, but can also rotate or translate into any orientation. Terry, you used the term modulate.
He used the incorrect term modulate. So we'll just throw that out there, folks.
Yeah, we're just going to silently correct him because he's wrong.
There are some questions coming in about that. I think, Chris, maybe it's time to turn to you and maybe do some screen sharing or discussion about the linchpin shape, and maybe talk some about the technical requirements of the contest and how that relates to the drone and how it might fly.
And tell us about the time you played Radagasta Brown in The Hobbit.
Chris, are you muted?
Yes.
Now you're unmuted.
There we go.
So one of the questions that came in the chat was, what are the angles of the linchpin? Someone said I tried to recreate.
Oh my god!
The model.
Let me jump in here. The angles don't make sense. So, and this was commented on by actually Eric Weinstein when he went on Joe Rogan to kind of, I guess, rebut or debate Terrence Howard, but the angles don't make sense. There's an error. And again, here speaking as a mathematician, like you cannot actually make the linchpin shape because you're going to be off by a little bit. It's going to be like, I think it's sorry if I didn't look it up. It's like 109 degrees versus something like 108.7 something degrees. Whereas if you look at a pentagon, like a regular pentagon, and you try to put 6 of them together like he's done, it won't work. And I think they're about to get into this if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, Eric Weinstein was not the person to bring on to rebut Terrence Howard because someone needed
I couldn't agree more.
Because he was just there to get Terrence followers. He was not there to correct Terrence Howard. He's like, well, here's this crazy person that I can use to grow my audience a bit more.
Let's do this. Can you rewind it like slightly? I want to hear their conversation here about the angles because you can, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can kind of hear or see Chris Seeley kind of like he's, oh my God, they figured it out. We didn't get the angles right.
Well, it's 20 seconds back, so let's see if that's far enough.
It's the contest and how that relates to the drone and how it might fly. Oh, Chris, are you muted?
Yes.
Now you're unmuted.
There we go.
So one of the questions that came in the chat was, what are the angles of the linchpin? Someone said I tried to recreate it in my 3D modeling software and I couldn't get it to come out right. Is there anything you can show us about that, or maybe DJ you would be the right person to ask?
Yeah, DJ probably for the angles in the distributed. You have that handy, DJ? A little bit. Just as far as like that, this is the kind of the as we dive into the sacred geometry aspect of this, and it's one that
there you go, the spirit science angle of this. But yeah, you see how fast he threw it to somebody else. He kind of passed the buck. He was like, oh, the angles, let's get somebody else to explain that.
Basically, I think this guy knows Terrence Howard is incorrect, to put it mildly, but he's just going to take his money. I mean, honestly, Terrence Howard probably isn't causing that much harm. So just making Saturn come together without gravity in Blender using some Python code probably isn't going to harm a lot of people.
The tetrahedral angle is crucial, and it's 109.47 ... to infinity ultimately.
Do you have any video of that?
Terrence Howard does have something weird against irrational numbers.
He does. And I believe in his book, if I'm not mistaken, he quotes Norman J. Wildberger, who was once a respected mathematician. He works in some university in Canada, but Norman J. Wildberger has also a YouTube channel called Insights into Mathematics, where he tries to say that like irrational numbers don't exist and even real numbers don't exist because of the whole ... And let me go on a bit of a tangent here, but the ... are important. And what I mean by that is that the square root of 2. The square root of 2 is about 1.41 ... because nobody in their right mind would bother like memorizing it past that point, except for Terrence Howard, because he likes memorizing stuff. And I get it because he's an actor and he's really good at like memorizing lines. But that's his thing. Not just because he's stupid. I mean, that's one of the reasons. But it's also because he is really good at memorizing stuff. He loves memorizing. So when he goes on Oxford speeches and he goes on different podcasts, he'll say, 1.41, and he starts saying, let me give an example with pi, because I kind of know that one. It's like 3.14159265535. It doesn't matter past the third or fourth decimal point to the right of, the digit to the right of the decimal point, because that level of precision would not make a difference. In a 3D printer, like they're talking about, which is normally how you design, parts for drones, it wouldn't matter. That level of precision it's not visible to the human eye. It wouldn't make a difference in the aerodynamics of it. So one of the things that Terrence Howard has gone on and said is that he doesn't believe in the square root of 2, whatever that means. But the square root of 2 is just the number that it's defined as the number that when you square it, when you multiply it by itself, you get 2. It's that simple. And because you cannot express that using base 10 and decimal digits without saying ... Terrence Howard doesn't believe that it exists. And he gets that from a guy named Norman J. Wildberger, who has a math degree and is way more qualified to speak about this than Terrence Howard is. And so he kind of just goes on that and says, okay, the square root of 2, there's some kind of error in the calculator and there's a loop and all this stuff. And it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he understood anything about math, he'd realize what he's essentially describing with his loop is a consequence of the laws of exponents. And
exactly. Because let me jump in. A root is actually an exponent. When you take a square root, you're actually raising to the 1/2 power.
And any positive number will do the Howard loop. You just take the square root of the number cubed, divide it by that number, and you're going to get the square root of that number. As long as the number is greater than greater than 0.
In a way of speaking, I think I have to write it down to figure it out, but I think it's it is laws of exponents. It's because when you do root 2 times root 2 times root 2 and you cube it and then you divide out a 2 from that, well, 2 of those, the times 2, it just cancels itself out. So it really is, it's just basic arithmetic. It's something that 6th and 7th graders could explain to you.
And honestly, I personally thought he had gotten confused with the idea of an exact value, which some higher math courses will ask for, with an irrational number. A calculus course.
Yeah, but the thing is, the square root of 2 is an exact number. Let's get that straight. And that's why I never use the decimal digits and stuff. That's why when you want to talk about, the ratio of circumference to diameter of a circle, you don't say 3.14. You say pi. Pi is a number. Pi is a perfectly valid number. So is the square root of 2.
And honestly, if I hadn't read that story about how he argued with his math teacher about the square root of 2, I might have believed that, but I would also like to point out that I live in the only state that did try to legislate the value of pi.
I heard about that.
Fortunately, the state Senate quickly killed the bill, but it did pass the House.
Visuals of that, DJ, and you can share the screen.
You want to go this direction, Josh? It's a bit of a rabbit hole, of course.
Well, if we start going down a rabbit hole, I'll try to pull us back out. We're only planning to go for about an hour today, but yeah, I'd love to let people take a look at it and discuss it a little more technically. Let me answer this question while you bring that up. Hang on. There was a question from Mystery D. Mystery D, thank you for your straight honesty. If this is so photography oriented, why hasn't anybody brought up the fact that you need like 4 360-degree cameras? How do you fly it? Line of sight, FPV? Where the F do you put a camera?
Well,
it's such a good point to make, because if you have this linchpin, and it's got all these different, okay, so first person view, where is the first person? Where do you put the cameras? Do you need a bunch of different cameras? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Mad computer scientist, you're muted.
Sorry, I was typing. Yeah, it does. I mean, honestly, this would be an unwieldy flight thing anyway, and I don't think the aerodynamics of it would be very good, but...
Absolutely not. You know what's funny is right now when you paused it, you can see Chris Seeley laughing. He's actually like laughing at Terrence Howard right here in the corner. It's wow. But now they're going to get into all this like sacred geometry stuff. If you can see the screen here, this is the flower of life, that spirit science and his high-pitched voice likes to talk about.
Yeah. Well, honestly, if it weren't for Mortimer 81, I never would have heard about spirit science. And an old channel called Cool Hard Logic. And that was not what I intended to do.
Wow, that's what the next part of this competition will be. Where do you put the sensors? Where do you put the LiDAR? Because it has the potential of Ezekiel's wheel, and being able to.
Okay, maybe you know this more than I do. I don't know what Ezekiel's wheel is.
I have no idea what he's talking about either.
It sounds Ezekiel. That sounds almost like something like biblical, like something from the Bible. Yeah. Look it up. And while you're doing that, let me just say this: that Eric Weinstein did bring up one good point. He said one thing that kind of made sense to me, having a math background, and that was that. What we're looking at right here is what they call, quote unquote, the flower of life. And Terrence Howard seems to think that like every single thing in the universe is somehow having to do with this shape, which is just a bunch of circles. The thing that Eric Weinstein said that I did actually like was that Terrence Howard was actually talking about how this is a projection. He's talking about projective and affine geometry, where if you actually rotate it and look at the three-dimensional structure that's making a shadow of the flower of life, that's what Terrence Howard is trying to talk about. His little weird shapes that he does with like this, his weird, the one that we're about to see, is actually, if you were to take the flower of life and like say, okay, well that's excuse me, that's the shadow. What's making the shadow? And what makes the shadow is all these weird shapes that he comes up with. But even though that is kind of cool, like from a math perspective, it's still completely useless.
Okay, so Ezekiel's wheel, for those of you who are wondering, is apparently a symbol of God's omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence.
And that, of course, explained nothing. Like, again, he throws in religion. How do you mix religion with mathematics? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think the Neoplatonists did that, didn't they?
The Pythagoreans and those that
Yeah.
followed numerology and all that. And I believe one of them actually got tossed off a boat one time.
And if you ever watch the person I mentioned earlier, Mork, he does that quite a bit. But I was actually looking up Hypatia of Alexandria today for some reason.
Go in any given direction. Well, we have the directions worked out. Now it's putting those 4 cameras there, and then it'll be stitching those cameras' perspectives together as to which one, when it's moving in one given direction, maybe that's the camera that takes off. But those are all the things that I need the FPV community for, and that I would like to find.
But do you see how complicated that would be? He's trying to say that for his linchpin drone, okay, here's the solution, y'all. Put in like 5 or 6 different cameras and then stitch together every single feed from the camera. Like, who would want to do that? And what would be the point of doing that? It's so ridiculous, and again, for $25,000, the labor and the software involved in doing that would absolutely not be worth it.
Not to mention, if you just wanted to make a panoramic view drone, there are easier ways of doing that. In fact, I think they make 360-degree cameras.
And literally grow this. But go ahead, DJ, explain this since it's up there. That's great.
Yeah,
Okay.
good question.
Yeah. So the interior of the linchpin is a tetrahedron, and the angle here is it's 109.47 ad infinitum. And kind of the key to the whole thing.
Okay, let me pause. It's not ad infinitum. It's not ad infinitum, because ad infinitum assumes that it goes on in a predictable pattern. So let me give an example. 1/3 is 0.333 ad infinitum, right? Because it continues that way. It keeps going 0.333333 forever. He's talking about an irrational number. Irrational numbers like pi or e or the square root of 2, they don't have a repeatable pattern. So you can't say, okay, 109.47 ad infinitum. If you say that, it kind of makes it sound like it's 109.474747474747, right? That's not what he means. And also that 109.47 is not the angle of a pentagon, a regular pentagon. That would be 108.
Analysis that ends up being kind of like a bit of a WTF, as far as Cartesian coordinates go. So
I can't imagine anyone coming across anything Terrence Howard says and saying WTF. In fact, I certainly don't have a factor for people like Howard, Young Pharaoh, and others that I call WTFs per minute, which is how many times per minute can they make me go, what? Terrence Howard has a fairly high one.
There are angles that you can get really remarkably close, but you always run into this fifth relationship that occurs.
Well, exactly. This is what I meant earlier. You will come close, but you will never be able to recreate this shape in three-dimensional space, in three-dimensional Cartesian space, which is, how we actually print stuff and make drones. It's impossible. So even the people that won this contest, foreshadowing, the people that actually won this contest didn't even do it properly. They actually had to use an approximation. So even Terrence Howard has come out and said, oh, we don't like this because it's an approximation. This is an approximation. His entire drone design is based on an approximation.
Well, here's the thing, though. If he studied engineering, approximations are absolutely fine.
That's true. And that's why the drone shape works. That's why that somebody out there that's not Terrence Howard was able to build it and able to make it fly. But he thought this shape was like the universal connector. But no, it's not, because the angles don't add up. He has an error. And they talk about it being, I don't know too much music theory, but he talks about it being a relationship of fifths. The fifth versus the octave versus, whatever. And then Terrence hops onto that and is like, oh, yeah, music, because hydrogen is in the key of E, and all this weird, ridiculous stuff that is just sounds like someone that's just done way too much acid.
Well, it could be. Personally, I think Sarah Club will help a lot of this go away.
In music, actually, the fifth being the second most harmonious interval after an octave. So, like a piano is tuned. It's called well tempered, but you go off the natural intervallic ratios for pure rationality out of this. And this is ultimately what Terrence's book is pointing.
Intervallic, is that a word? It might be, but I thought that word was interval.
Intervallic. I love it. I love it when people make up new terms. Terrence does it a lot, and I'm not sure who's speaking right now in the live, but they're somewhat of a Terrence Howard apologist. They're trying to make excuses for Terrence Howard.
I think we've both seen those.
In many ways. And what are the energetics that cause life to form ultimately? And
what does life have to do with this? What are we getting into, like Dr. James Tour now with like
the energetics that cause life to form? What?
That's a word salad. That is a word salad if I've ever heard one.
I mean, abiogenesis is beyond me. It's okay to admit something's beyond you.
Like sand.
You know, it's like the people who come to my channel and ask me about quantum, and I have to say it's like, or not quantum, ask me about Willow, and
we don't do quantum over here.
And I have to say it's like, hey, it's like, I've heard some things about the chip, but I don't do quantum computing. And there have been a lot of dubious claims about Willow. And I basically had to say, it's like, I doubt it proved multiverses, because physics has found no evidence that multiverses exist.
Oh, yeah. And there's so much abuse out there of the word quantum and of the double slit experiment and, you know, electrons being in different states at the same time and superposition and all that. The people like spirit science, if people remember that, have kind of energy used to be the word. It used to be energy. Oh, or frequency, right? You're not vibing at the same frequency, and that's supposed to mean something. But now the word is quantum. That's like the new buzzword. It's ridiculous.
Sand dollars, etc. Like look at the pentagonal aspect of many flowers, and our entire anatomy is built off the symmetries of five, and where do those come from? And that's ultimately the pointing.
I think he's just quoting the Principia Discordia at this point.
I've never seen a pentagonal flower. Has anyone ever seen a flower out there in the shape of a pentagon? Because I sure haven't.
Nope. Doesn't mean they don't exist. I just haven't seen them.
Area. I know that's a bit esoteric, but
yeah,
you can get very very exact with this as far as like optimal engineering prototyping of this geometry, but it's pointing at something that's a bit.
Oh, that was someone on their end. Okay.
Transcendent.
I don't know who the best person to answer this question is, but let me ask the question that's being asked in the chat. The question that's being asked is, what's the practical application of this? And there's another question that's coming up that ties in, which is this.
Well, if you ask Mr. Howard, apparently it's building pyramids and cleaning up space junk. Which means not only did Mr. Howard fail basic math, he apparently did not understand basic physics.
But the thing is that there really is no practical application for this. It's a waste of time. Like the whole drone design contest, maybe somebody, they were able to make a good drone in that shape, but it's because it's going against basic physics. Like this is an awful shape for a drone. If you were going to go out there and be like, hey, what's a great shape for a drone if we wanted to fly? This would be the worst example.
Well, I would probably do something like what he's doing and ask engineers who study this sort of thing. But it's like, if I want to know, like, what's the best way to build a rocket, I'm not going to ask my friend, the software engineer, even though she works for an aerospace company, because she is a software engineer. I mean, she does also have a degree in physics, but she's still an engineer. She's still a software engineer.
And above all, I would not ask Terrence Howard.
Yeah, I was afraid the friend I mentioned would have a better clue, but Terrence Howard would not.
Seems like, from a pure flight perspective, a really inefficient design. Like there's always going to be some motors that aren't really doing anything.
Oh, hey, they just said it.
That's great.
I would like to say though, before I throw that to you, that even
Okay, it's just someone in the background again.
if this was just a pure passion or art project, the fact that people out there are passionate about it and want to share it, I mean, that, and the fact that Terry's
Speaking of things that are passion or art projects, check out my itch.io page or my GitHub page.
putting up 25 grand if you want to get in on it. I mean, to me, that means that it's at least worth looking at. But what are the practical applications of this? Who's the best person to answer that?
Well,
I was thinking
Chris,
Terry?
best for that, and you know, we
Or
can
Chris?
separate with words, but Chris, we can throw a simulation up there, a particle simulation, how it behaved in there, to see if this thing would be inefficient with flight, or whether it would make flight, you know, really open up the door for flight. So I'd love.
Are you going to use Blender to prove it's efficient for flight?
I was about to say, let's put up a simulation in Blender.
I mean, you can build simulations in Blender. It has a Python scripting element to it, but it is not what it is for.
For Chris to handle that, and if
Okay. Chris, let me turn it over to you. What are the practical applications of this? And if possible, why does it need to be this shape as opposed to, a more traditional shape?
and DJ, you might want to let Chris have the screen for this.
Sure. Okay.
Because then you can throw that simulator up. And
Chris seems totally unprepared
That's
to
possible.
answer this question.
Let me just open up a file here.
He also needs a shave.
So let me see.
I don't know. Maybe he was the backup guitarist for ZZ Top.
He's got the guitar right there in the background.
Want to interject while we have a down second. I saw in the comments someone was saying that they wanted to get the frame but didn't have $45 to spend on the kit that's on the Rotor Riot store. So currently
pause.
uploading it to Thingiverse.
Oh,
So here you go. $45. Terrence Howard was like, you know what? For this drone design contest, let's actually make a kit that someone can buy for $45. And that's where he actually comes across as a grifter and as someone who's just trying to make money off of people. He was like, oh yeah, you want to do my drone design contest? Pony up.
So that you can download the connectors, print them yourself if you have a 3D printer, or have a friend with a 3D printer, and then put it together. You don't have to. The kit that we have on the store has carbon fiber rods, which kind of accounts for why it's $45. But you can get like wooden dowels that just need to be.
speaking of things that shouldn't be running, I need to fix something because there's something on my end that should have been stopped. There we go.
Was it 4 millimeters in diameter, and they can be any length, right? You can scale it. So we used 100 millimeters, but you can make it bigger if you want, as long as they're all the same.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there was.
so doing that.
There was never an expectation that he would have to buy it from the Rotor Riot store.
No,
we
no,
just
it's
wanna
just
get
to make
out
it
there.
easier if you don't want to deal with printing and sourcing the sticks yourself.
There's also some questions going on in the chat about whether the amount of money being offered is proportional to the work. People, because I don't know the answer.
It's not. $25,000 to build a drone in this stupid shape with cameras on it is absolutely not worth $25,000.
So my question is, did he come to that figure using his own math or someone else's?
He's like, what's $25,000 times 1?
Well, that should be $25,001.
Answer either. I'm not a.
And also, if he's going to define multiplication that way, why doesn't division work the same way?
Good point.
If you're going to divide by 1, it should be subtraction by 1.
Like controller designer. So when Terry said we're putting up 25 grand, so I was like, well, that seems like a lot of money to me. But then I talked to other people, and some of the people I talked to said this is going to be months of work. I wouldn't touch it for that amount.
Mm-hmm.
Other people I talked to said, No, I could do that in an afternoon. Now, who's right? I will tell you, though, we have 10 people already who have entered the contest. One of them is Kevin Plaisir, the lead Emu Flight developer. He seems to think he knows how to crack it. So I don't know who's right. And at the end of the day, whether someone wins the contest and accepts the prize will ultimately determine it. But I don't think it's ludicrous. Some people are saying this would be too.
Yeah, but sometimes people do things just because it's an interesting challenge and don't care about the money.
Yeah, exactly. Like if someone put a math challenge out there, I'd be like, okay, let's, because it's just fun. It's just like, it's their hobby, it's their passion.
Like if I knew how to solve, I don't know, maybe the unique games conjecture, which I don't, because there's another thing that has to be solved first before you can solve it.
And my favorite unsolved problem out there is gold box conjecture, which I have written software for, but it basically just evaluates test cases.
And I also think I've wasted time on the 3n+1 conjecture.
Oh, you definitely have.
500 hours of work. Yeah. Some credible people seem to feel that may not be the case.
Well, at the end of, by those that that are called to this dance, they see the much larger picture. Because one of the benefits, pause your screen for a second, Chris, because I don't want them to miss that. We're not talking about just a single structure that's going to, be out there flying. We're talking about, for the first time, when I said modulate, the ability for structures to bond. And because we found the fractal source, the cause structure, it's able to make an unlimited number.
Okay, well, I want to say we've all seen what everyone actually comes to YouTube videos for, a cat. The cat looks uninterested and is very interested in something behind what looks to be an aquarium.
Of bonds and work as a much larger structure. So everything that you saw in Transformers of Big Hero 6 and all the things that
Big Hero 6, what an obscure reference. Big Hero 6.
I wonder if it was popular at the time this live stream was done.
No, now there are science possible as a result of the linchpin. So the people that I'm looking out for is going to ultimately be in charge of $100 billion company.
What?
Yeah, oh, okay. Yeah.
I think the cat is as impressed as we are.
It just with regard to the bonding capability. With 1 million drones, you can take over any nation in the world. So you think the military won't want to
have So now he's talking about taking over nations. He's talking about military. He's getting very violent very quickly.
Well, I don't think you can take out any. First of all, what type of drones? And secondly, taking out a country takes more than just drones.
Well, without saying too much, Terrence Howard does have a history of violence.
Yeah, and I think this is just part of his illusions here.
Well, the person that wins this competition, the people that place the best in this competition, or that applies themselves the most in this competition, those are the people that I'm going to ask, hey, will you help build this and run this part of it, because there's a number of different things. So, if somebody feels like this is above and beyond them, I'll give you one example. When I did Hustle and Flow, I got paid $12,000. That's what they were paying me to sing, to dance, to all that.
I feel like he's probably lying about this. I don't know. I Hustle and Flow, like that was a pretty big movie. He's trying to say that he only got $12,000 to star in Hustle and Flow.
Yeah, I doubt that very much as well, but I wonder if there's just more to what he's saying here, or if he just is talking about a specific part of it, but it's not a movie I've seen.
$1,000 for that, but it's opened me up to all these other opportunities. So that's what this basically is. It's your hustle and flow, if you have that drive. Chris, will you explain why the linchpin, how it behaves inside of within space itself?
Sure, I can show this.
Okay, for everyone who passed physics, you know that a propeller-powered vehicle will not move in space under its own propulsion. There is not enough air for the propellers to move.
This design here. Thanks, Chad, for this model here too, the directions model. That's I believe you did that one. I believe.
Well,
so if I look from the top here,
let me switch
Okay,
to
they're
your
using
shared
Zoom.
content. Hang on a second, Chris.
And if you'll notice, you'll
There we
see
go.
that this has
There's the blender. There's blender.
vertices on either direction. So for the
Oh, good. I'm so glad he found some computer-aided drafting and computer-aided manufacturing software, too. Which actually does exist in open source, so I don't know why he's using Blender.
competition, it would be best, I believe, if one uses, have, 12, literally 12 sets of props rolling, on opposites, But go ahead, explain.
right. So this is the general shape, and the arrows show the rotation of the potential rotation for your props and which way they would spin. This is the linchpin, and when we select, what I've done here is put in the actual vortexes, and their force vectors or thrust vectors are pointing on the planes of on the linchpin. So there's two on each face of the pentagons facing out, and they focus at a point. If you look down the angle here, they'll focus at a tetrahedral point at infinity, where the three.
Do you think he just puts the stuff together and makes stuff up because he knows it wouldn't work in real life?
He said tetrahedral point too. Tetrahedron is also a platonic solid.
I'm also guessing maybe this guy did some drugs in the past.
I think that maybe he is currently on several drugs.
Possibly as well.
On all four sides. And then what we did, just as a simulation, and the purpose of this too is if you imagine the flying ball that Luke Skywalker trained with for the Jedi, that's kind of how.
yeah, that's the drugs talking.
Something like that, stationary in space, orientate around itself in any direction, and translate in any direction, and it would fly, really any way you want it. Really, that's the goal. And so then when we ran the simulation here, so you've got 12. In this case, I have the 12 vortexes, and there's one force in the center that's pulling the air back into it to simulate how the air would go back in towards the center of the drone and come back out through each of the faces simultaneously.
Yeah,
so it creates this harmonic feedback loop. And then these particles, this is a physics simulation here. So when I run this simulation, all these little blue balls represent like an air particle. And then when they
what is he talking about?
I don't know. I just know blue ball is 8 miles from intercourse. And yes, look that up on Google Maps. That's true. They are both towns in Pennsylvania. But yeah, honestly, I just thought it's like, I'm just wondering if you went into geez, I can't think. Like the local head shop, went into the black light poster room and just took a picture and
this whole thing is on drugs. And I'm not trying to make any accusations here, but if we thought that maybe this was the result of Terrence Howard, trying some DMT or ayahuasca or something, this guy Chris Seeley is like the icing on the cake.
Yeah, but it does look like a black light poster you would find in your local head shop.
It looks like something I would see at a Pink Floyd laser light show.
That as well.
Color, and the colors will be blue is for no motion and red is high velocity. So you'll see a velocity field vector field translate here.
I think I saw this scene in the Neutron movie.
I hit play, it will simulate for you. And you kind of see that it starts to harmonically oscillate at first.
He's like, if I hit play, it'll
And then
simulate.
it
You mean it will animate?
Yeah. You start to see a hexagonal field around the outside of the craft, right? And slowly over time, you'll see the flowers start to form. So the air will actually start to form into the flower shape. So this is
I don't know what he's talking. Look, now it's a peace sign. Oh my god, it's a peace sign. I don't know what he's talking about. What are you following this at all?
Sorry.
Because he's saying something about the flowers, and I don't know if he's hallucinating at this point.
Sorry, I was trying to find the hexagon because I think this may be partly how he generated the Saturn image. The Saturn actually does have a hexagon at the poles.
That's true, but it turns out it also has a peace sign.
Yeah, but there is actually a hexagon there if you look closely. As for the rest, I don't see it. Other than the peace sign, I can see that.
a physics fluid simulation.
I think people are having
Okay, yeah, air is technically a fluid in physics, so let that one go.
a little trouble seeing the animation because the Zoom call is having a little trouble keeping up with all of that stuff. But
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll pause it here in the spot and let it refresh. Then I'll stop the simulation so you can just kind of see the field, and then I'll rotate around it slowly. So
He doesn't know what the word field means.
In theory, it should flow.
Like nobody here knows what the word field. Chris Seeley and Terrence Howard don't know what field actually means. A magnetic field, an electric field, even a mathematical field.
Or the field in an SQL table. I don't know what I'm thinking. There is something that is a field, but my brain's kind of fried.
Oh, something
So I probably would have a hard time defining those as well, but I'm not trying to use the word.
similar to this around that type of a shape and create this standing wave. So what we're looking to do is basically cancel all the forces in all directions. So all the forces end up pointing directly at the center of gravity within the graph, and it'll just sit in space, pretty much decoupled, right?
So all the forces point towards the center of gravity.
Yeah, this doesn't make any sense.
Well, if all the forces point towards the center of gravity, other than the one that's probably going to be affecting it the most, wouldn't it fall?
I don't think that Terrence Howard even believes that gravity exists. He said several times that he was going to kill gravity or something. So everything now in this little simulation that mentions gravity is going against Terrence Howard's view of gravity. So contradiction.
All right, I need to look something up because I know I'm thinking of something.
And while you're doing that, let me just so for those of you that have been following along, like Chris Seeley is not making any sense with any of the words that he's speaking right now. What we're looking at on the screen is some sort of Blender animation. They call it a simulation, but it's not. It's just an animation. And they just basically put a bunch of geometric shapes out there, like probably hallucinations based on when they were on DMT or something. I don't know, but it's pretty, like it's kind of fun, you know. And I've talked about Terrence Howard's shapes before as being kind of, you know, fun and cool, but they don't mean anything. It doesn't mean that, like, what does this have to do with the drone? What does this have to do with drones at all? It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. I keep thinking of the biohazard symbol. But yes, field actually does have some kind of meaning, in specifically SQL.
Oh, yeah. In computer science, it does. In mathematics, a field is a set of numbers with two binary operations, which have closure and associativity and commutativity. But field can mean so many different things. When you're talking about scientific stuff like electromagnetism, you have an electric field, you have a magnetic field. They're not giving enough context for us to know what the hell they mean by field. And I can tell that the other people in this Zoom call are probably just like looking at their watches, being like, okay, when's he going to stop with this weird Blender stuff? Because we don't know what's going on.
Well, I mean, he's probably just happy he can get a simulation software used by Harvard and Stanford for $0.
And
With
for
him here,
anybody,
of course.
and for anybody that wants to
Just like the US government can save a lot of money by canceling unused VS Code licenses.
see the simulation, all they have to do is go to the competition rules, go into an area that's where it says hindsight. You hit hindsight, and then you'll see it should show up, and it should say directions. Well, if you look in directions, right inside of the directions, I was talking about the directions of the blades. You look at that, and you'll be able to pull up this simulation.
What?
Real time yourself.
The directions of the blades? Like, what does he mean? Like clockwise versus counterclockwise? Like, what does he mean by direction? I thought when he said directions, he meant like instructions on how to use the Blender animation.
That would make more sense. But we also know he says things spin northeast, so. And I would love to know what that means.
Go ahead, Chris.
Terry, there's some questions coming in about the rules of the contest. So I wonder if it would be a good time to start talking about the rules of the contest and your intention behind the rules. In the beginning, the contest was $15,000, and there was a clause in that, like the lawyers put in, that related to the intellectual property. So
he underballed it even more with 15,000. And then he put in like some clause from the lawyers that like, oh, by the way, everything that you design and all the hard work that you put in now belongs to me.
If you wanted to make a new multi-rotor drone or multi-directional drone and design it, you could probably just sell it for more and it would be more effective.
That wasn't my intent. Can you speak to your intent for basically the relationship between you and the ultimate winner or winners of the contest?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, well, first I have to preface by saying I'm not a lawyer, so I still will retain whatever rights that was set out in the contract.
Oh, Terrence, I would love to see you practice law too. I would hope you not ever have any clients, but I would love to see you practice law.
Of course.
I speak.
In fact, Terrence, I want you to start representing sovereign citizens.
Oh my God. That is so crazy because every time I hear Terrence Howard talk about math, I think about the way that sovereign citizens talk about law. Like they have so much confidence in things that are completely meaningless. It's such a great analogy.
Well, I mean, the trick of a con man is to be able to talk confidently, even if you don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if you know who Kent Hovind is, you probably do, but that's his game. He doesn't know what he's talking about, but he can speak confidently. And because he can speak confidently, people who don't really know the subject assume he knows what he's talking about.
If I speak improperly, but what we set up initially, my attorney thought that.
Wait, if you speak improperly, Mr. Howard, I've never heard you speak properly.
I needed to be protected and own all of this stuff, and it was like, dude, I just had my face stolen by Fox. I know what it's like. Taken by
he sounds like a crazy person, doesn't he? I just had my face stolen by Fox.
Yeah, I don't know what he meant by that. This is why I personally think it is like some form of schizophrenia or a similar undiagnosed or untreated, perhaps, mental illness. And in some ways, it's sad if that is the case. But guys, if you know someone like this, there is help out there. It may be hard to get them the help that they need, but it is possible.
I was like, and not receive any dividends for it. So I said, these people, I would, for the sake of the linchpin, I would like.
I think he means royalties, not dividends, because royalties are what you receive for.
Right.
Creative works and dividends are what you receive when you own stock.
To own, and if you win the competition and you accept the $25,000, then you are selling your intellectual property, to the company. But you'll still receive all the royalties that you would have not normally received in standard operating procedure. And anybody that knows me, I always go above that anyway. And as you've heard in this conversation, what I want is to build a team of super scientists, of super innovative individuals that can really help me in populating the world.
So you're a want-to-be tech billionaire who's misusing the term innovation. Got it.
Exactly.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that. We'll go back.
Has proven, beyond an equation, with each one of the geometries that have been patented here, all of these things.
Since when can you patent geometry?
And yeah, he's like each one of the geometries, like he pluralizes it as if that makes any sense whatsoever. The thing is, there are different types of geometry. There's Euclidean, there's spherical, there's hyperbolic, there's even something called taxicab geometry. There's different types of geometries out there, but that's not what he means by this.
Things.
I'm pretty sure when he uses geometries, he just means different shapes.
Are geometric proofs, visual.
No,
good
no,
God.
they're not. I love geometric proofs. He is abusing the word geometric proof. A geometric proof is something that you can look at and you can be like, oh, now it makes sense. Like we can like with Pythagorean theorem. You can actually measure a right triangle, and you can say, well, this is 1 inch and the other leg is 1 inch, and we measure the hypotenuse, it's the square root of 2. So Pythagorean theorem makes sense. That's a geometric proof. And there's several different geometric proofs of Pythagorean theorem. He is not using that term correctly. And this is something that really, really bugs me about Terrence Howard. He says words or phrases that are actually real phrases like geometric proof, but he doesn't use them properly. And he just confuses people.
Well, this is also one of the things where a lot of people don't learn math very well, and we don't teach it very well, which, not a slam on math teachers, it's just we don't teach it very well. We teach it in a way that kind of turns people off to it. So a lot of people will just hear this and think, oh yeah, he's saying stuff I don't understand, and he's saying it with confidence, so he must be right.
That's exactly it. Like we said before, say it with confidence, like Ken Hovind, and people will believe it. But he's not making any sense.
Proofs of how the universe really behaves. So the 1 × 1 = 2 is to the uninitiated.
Oh yes, because
we finally got there.
We use proofs in the hard sciences like physics, chemistry, and biology. They're all known for giving proofs of their theories and not, saying you can't prove anything absolutely because that's the domain of math.
It could be seen as a metaphor for challenging the status quo. But to those who have the calling, the one...
Mr. Howard, if I ever need plastic surgery to remove the dent that my palm has put in my forehead, just listening to you, I am sending you the bill.
× 1 = 2 shows equanimity in the universe.
What does that mean?
I don't think equanimity is even a word. Is it?
I don't think so either.
Equanimity. And then, so did you hear that? He kind of just said that 1 × 1 = 2 is a metaphor.
Yeah, it's a metaphor for what?
Yeah, but now he's going, and then, so he either said he's got a proof that 1 × 1 = 2, and then he says it's a metaphor. So it's are you proving it? Are you saying it's real mathematics? Or are you saying that it's a metaphor? Because he kind of wants to have it both ways.
And he also doesn't know how a metaphor works, has been pointed out. Like, I can say, in The Lord of the Rings, Sauron is a metaphor for Satan. Or Isaac Asimov once argued that the Tolkien's ring is a metaphor for modern technology. And I don't agree with Asimov on that one, but if he can support his point, he can at least lead me to why he's thinking that.
And it opens the door for really being able to understand how all things come together and ultimately how all things affect everything that comes together. So you don't need to understand that now.
Yeah.
Oh, that was on their own. I was going to say, and please send me money so I can buy more erector sets.
Understand is that the same way they had to challenge the idea of the world being flat, and everyone considered that to be ludicrous, when they challenged it.
Did they? Did they? Because I could have sworn that Aristophanes in ancient Greece, before Christ, actually did experiments that proved that the world was not flat, that it was actually somewhat spherical or elliptical.
I think even before that, they had arguments to show. Like, the reason you can see, like, the top of the ship before the bottom coming over the horizon is because the Earth is a sphere.
And we're getting into, like, the flat Earth stuff now, which, honestly, I really thought that Terrence Howard was a flat earther when I first heard his arguments, because he sounds so much like a flat earther that it's surprising to me that he thinks the world is round.
Well, when I've heard flat Earth arguments, I can't take them seriously because I think even they know it's a grift. I think they're just either in it for the attention or they're getting money out of it.
And that's what I can't figure out about Terrence, is if he actually believes the stuff that he says. And I think that he does. I think that he actually believes all this weird shit about linchpins and I guess because he's just an idiot. But he also is somewhat of a grifter.
Well, I think he wants to be a genius. And while I don't necessarily think he's all that stupid, I think he just needs to accept it's okay to be average. Not everyone needs to be a genius. Mr. Howard has talents I don't. Everyone has talents I don't. Just go back to acting, Mr. Howard. That's what you're good at.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I would never bother memorizing the square root of 2 to like 55 digits like he has.
1,400 years later, Christopher Columbus, climbs on a boat and proves it for everyone.
First off, navigators of Columbus's time knew the world was round.
Yes, it was not Christopher Columbus that proved the world was round.
And secondly, Christopher Columbus was not trying to circumnavigate the world. He was trying to find a shorter path to the Far East.
Or to the West Indies.
Well, no one knew the West Indies were there. But am I thinking of the White Islands? The West Indies are in the Caribbean, right? Now, there's India and Indians, but then there's like Native American Indians, and they thought that was India. They didn't know about. I'll give them this: they didn't know the entire world map at the time. But Christopher Columbus was not like, I'm gonna go on a boat and prove the world is round. Like he doesn't even know history. Like he doesn't know math. He's really bad at English. He's failed every single subject. And when I say that, I mean like at the middle school level.
According to mainstream.
If I could chime in, I come from a traditional mathematics background. I have a degree in engineering physics. And, I guess what I would say is I've never told Terry, hey, I buy in and understand everything you're saying.
Gee, I can't imagine why.
A polite way of saying it.
Traditional math works very well for me. It helps me 3D print, helps me fly drones, helps me engineer cars at General Motors. It's a tool. But there's always more than what we know. And well, I guess the best way to think of it is Newtonian physics is an awesome tool. And when I was in high school learning Newtonian physics, it all worked. And I could calculate that when we dropped the ball off the roof of our school, we could calculate how long it's going to take to hit the ground. And the calculation was right. And it was incredible. And Newtonian physics is all made up. It's a tool that works at low speeds, close to large.
It's more of an observation, and it would be accurate to say, at least in part, that it's an abstraction. It's not the actual thing, it's a representation of the thing that we basically have a mental model of.
Masses like the Earth, but in actuality, there's so much more going on. And when Einstein came around and had general relativity, and he was a patent clerk at the time, not a degreed scientist.
Actually, it was special relativity, not general relativity, if I recall correctly.
It didn't make any sense. No one believed it. And it took until what did they have to do? They had to wait for an eclipse so that they could actually measure that light bent around the sun, because the sun was the only the only high mass object close enough that they could measure the light bending around the sun, but the sun itself would blow out their measurement instruments, so it had to wait for a solar eclipse. And then it was like, oh, okay, and they measured it. There's something to it, and everyone thought Einstein and general relativity was right. And then that was disproven, and then we had special.
Wait, what? This guy has got it backwards, because general relativity came after special relativity. And special relativity is relativity regarding the speed of light, whereas general relativity is about the universe on a large scale. And I'm sure Dr. Tapioca Weasel would be shouting at me and correcting me right now. If he were here.
It's always a major, there's a lot of energy. It's like this wrestling match that happens in mass, and all the dynamics, although what's presented to us as something that's so clean and precise and everything, the dynamics that happen in the process of creating our reality, and particularly in the sciences, it's a drama inside a drama inside a drama.
You know what? Before you go, PJ, since you popped on, will you do me a favor? Will you go back and take over?
Sure.
Because you were showing the bonding linchpins while we have this conversation. And I love, keep going.
Okay.
Drew was about to say something.
Okay. I think, Chris, you need to stop sharing there.
And thanks, Chris.
Yeah, beautiful.
There you go. Yeah, and I agree, as DJ brings it up. I agree. Like the metaphor use is just a tool. Speaking of tools, is so we can, Andrew, so we can just think of, it helps you think in hyperbolic terms, like get us out of that, classical.
That's the key word right now.
While you're bringing that up, DJ, I'll jump in and speak to some of the comments on the channel. I mean, obviously, I'm also working from a 1 × 1 = 1 background.
I'm also sane.
Yeah. Only with Terrence Howard would anyone have to say that. I'm also working from a 1 × 1 = 1 background.
I'm also working from a A, B, C, D background.
Meaning I passed basic math. And do not agree with Terrence Howard.
But I don't think that I think that if your first reaction to something that you go, well, that's not right, and then you just throw it out, you just reject it entirely, that is, I think you may miss out on opportunities and potential. And I think there are a lot of opportunities.
He's trying to be polite. These people are trying to be polite. I see it, and you can see it too. It's like, he's trying to say in so many words, I got this rich person on, he's been an actor, he was in Iron Man, I guess, and I don't want to hurt his feelings. So instead of saying 1 times 1 equals 2 is stupid, I'm going to go ahead and say, there may be the other perspectives that we can take and approach this from different ways, and maybe that'll open up. No. You're just trying to not say to his face that he's an idiot.
Well, he does need to be aggressively shown he's wrong. But the problem I have is not that he's wrong, it's that he insists that he's right. Because I think we've both had situations where someone points out that, hey, our math is wrong here, when we're actually trying to explain how the math is being done.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll be the first to admit I'm also coming from a 1 times 1 equals 1 background.
And I'll take a look at it and then run it through again. It's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Thanks for pointing that out. But if you are convinced that the Anunnaki sky people gave us bad math that's held us back,
I think so. I personally believe and was taught that, the multiplication table that we all know and love was handed down on Mount Sinai from lightning striking tablets. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, the Bible is not a math textbook any more than it's a science textbook.
Potential here, whether or not you feel inspired by the metaphor of 1 times 1 equals 2 and the principle of equanimity and so forth. I think that there are some people who are going to approach it from a place of inspiration, and other people who are going to approach it as a technical challenge. But
I think everyone who did this approached it as a technical challenge because the rest doesn't make sense.
I think there's various perspectives from which you could be drawn to this. Let me switch over to DJ's screen here.
I like I like how it points to just
okay. All right, here come the planets.
Thinking the nature.
Here come the whatever the hell he's doing with Saturn and the Milky Way and all these planets. Let's see what he's got to do here.
Nature creates through division, not necessarily by multiplication, right? So.
Nature creates through division, not necessarily multiplication.
That makes no sense.
Well, it is true cells multiply by dividing, but what you've done there is an equivocation fallacy.
Multiplication and speaking from a math perspective, multiplication and division are the same operation. In fact, let me go a little deeper and say that division is not actually an operation. When you talk about mathematical fields, like the field of real numbers or even the field of rational numbers, you have two operations. You have addition and you have multiplication. The inverse elements and the inverse operation of addition is subtraction. The inverse of multiplication is division. So really, multiplication and division are the same thing. And addition and subtraction are the same thing. Again, just coming from a mathematical background.
I've been having a hard time trying to convince people that and or not are indeed mathematical operators lately.
Absolutely. Boolean operators.
But that's because they're not used to thinking that way. And apparently they dropped the truth table section from geometry.
No, I love truth tables.
And I have to explain to us, this is some of the easiest math you're ever going to learn, so pay attention.
Wow, that's beautiful, DJ.
Right. Yeah. A blast from the past here, right? But zooming out, we're just zooming out from the solar system out to
Let's pause for a second.
Local.
What the hell are we even looking at?
I think
what is this?
I think it's a star chart software.
Are we on the holodeck? What's going on here?
And I think that's supposed to be the solar system sphere with the Kuiper belt and the Oort clouds. I don't know. I just thought it was a cool bit of it's not hard. Cool graphical representation.
Stellar cloud.
Can I preface
And-
this, DJ?
Sure, go ahead.
We had about a year ago, DJ and I were sitting up, and it was just us two lonely people working about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago.
They were probably smoking weed.
And we were
Yes, they probably were smoking weed. I will give them that.
talking about I kept making the statement that it was a common factor of everything. It's where 5 and 6 and all these different numbers, find equanimity. And I was like, well, if it is a common factor of everything, we should be able to throw it up in this, it should predict where stars and all of those things, happen. And he was like, well, we can try it. And I was like, well, just put it up there. Well, DJ chose to take the linchpin and pull it into the
The joke I once heard about Yoda asking why 6 was afraid of 9 makes more sense than this. And that joke was because 978.
Solar apex, right? Basically where the sun is. And I put it on a basic orientation. And then I didn't talk to him for a week because I was in Vegas, busy with my family, having fun and da-da-da. And he had been trying to show me this thing that he had, the results of it. So I'll let you guys see it at the same time.
Okay, so I'll go back to let's see, let me find my place here. I go back to the celestial alignment was one of the big ones that we ran across during our initial.
What does the celestial alignment have to do with his drone?
As the terrestrial, the telestial, and the celestial. I'm sure you'll get that reference.
I mean, yeah, I do, but I still don't.
Exploration of this of Terrence's geometry. And this was the original.
All right, I would like to point out that Terrence Howard has published his work in the prestigious mathematical journal known as The View.
Kind of find, and there's some remarkable things if you think of, where your point of view, and then 2 points, 3 points make a plane. So this is the beginning.
Why? So we've got Terrence Howard's drone shape superimposed on top of a star field?
Yeah, like what is this? Yeah, I don't get the connection. Like they've made a little map of, I don't know, what are these?
They're constellations.
Constellations, there you go, sorry. And then they just they just like randomly inserted a linchpin shape. It's like if you just made any random shape and you put it over the constellations, you're like, oh look, it fits in perfectly. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but there was a channel called Cool Hard Logic that's not active anymore that was commenting on spirit science.
I think one of my favorite things about this is just like the random 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the very bottom of in just like differently colored bubbles. I don't understand what that means.
And I remember one of the lines in one of the videos was like, if you draw a shape with the intention of drawing a flower of life on top of it, you can draw a flower of life on top of it. It's like, what a remarkable discovery.
Beginning conception of this thing, and I'll make it fast, but you'll kind of see this remarkable alignment that kind of got everything rolling. But I've got the linchpin.
I feel like they're all rolling.
It's the celestial plane, which is ultimately the plane of the Earth, the North Pole pointing directly north.
So
wait. The plane of the Earth and the North Pole. So the North Pole's not part of the Earth anymore?
I think they meant Polaris, but which doesn't make any sense either. But and I think by plane they just meant like the
It doesn't even look like a plane. It looks like a. Okay, let this play. Let's just let this play out, and we'll see what happens.
It looks like the inside of a spherical object to me.
So this orange line, the solid
spheroid
line, is called the celestial equator, And if I do the alignment, and if you think of your eye as one point, and then these two, they're the inert. Terrence refers to these as the noble gases. So
he has to go. Oh, Terrence refers to these as noble gases. This guy, and he's stumbling over his words too. Like he doesn't know what to say because it doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, if you had media training, you would know at that point is if you have a script, just read it and don't try to make sense of it. But I don't think Terrence Howard provided him with a script.
At any of these vertices of these pentagons. So they line.
Hey, I think that's the first time they used that word correctly.
They line directly up with that plane, right?
So yes, you drew those points so the shape would line up with the celestial crater.
Yeah, you're exactly what you said before. It's like if we draw a line directly through this shape, oh my God, look, there's a line through this shape. It's circular reasoning. It's like you put it there. You put it there, so of course it's there.
It's like you drew the line with, yeah, sorry.
It's ridiculous.
You drew the line with the intention of putting the shape on top of it.
So, but then, like, I was just playing around with it because, he was pointing in a direction, but it's like, well, what happens if we do X, Y, and Z here? And then I'm seeing that this one, if you take these 2 points and then your eye point, this
your eye point,
the active plane. Right?
Yeah, I don't know what that means either. On the other hand, I think I've seen this science fiction show. Wasn't a very good one.
And one of the physicists that I've been associated with in the past, Eugene Bagashoff, was finding this alignment from a different angle. And it's like, I wonder if how the linchpin rolls with this kind of idea, right? So here's an interesting alignment too, right? But the one
you're just moving a shape on a screen.
all I see is a line going somewhat through a linchpin shape, and that's it. There's nothing spectacular here. I don't know what he's even talking about.
Ended up being a trifecta, and it really surprised me. But if we look at the, let me get it here, yeah. So this one ends up lining up with the ecliptic as well. So
what does that mean?
This one here.
The ecliptic does have meaning in astronomy. I think it's just this line right here.
Well, here's what's lining up, because I'm seeing them rotate this in like 3 dimensions. I don't see anything lining up. The green line I thought was like passing through the linchpin. Now it's not. I thought the orange line was passing through the linchpin. Now it's not. So I don't know what's going on here.
They keep rotating, and if they keep rotating like the linchpin shape or just moving it, eventually some point is going to line up with one of the lines they have drawn. It's like the dotted line is actually lining up with this part down here where the mouse is.
It's like, yeah, lines line up with other lines. Incredible.
Yeah.
So this trifecta that kind of occurred, kind of opened up my window into, like, once again, like kind of it was a WTF moment, So
just a happy accident,
yeah,
or something that, that the universe has planned for us to be able to see. And me taking it to the FPV community, who wants to be able to fly. This is just me saying.
But again, do you think your drone is going to fly in space?
What are the propellers going to propel based on? There's no air in space.
Yeah, it's the fact that he thinks he's invented a new method of propulsion is one of the things I think that lends credibility to his delusional state.
saying, hey, this is the lowest hanging fruit for us to venture into the unknown. Now we have proof that the world is not flat. Now we have proof.
We've had
what?
We literally have pictures from space.
He's like, now we have proof that the world is not flat. Well, you know what? I'll give him some credit there because there are people on the internet that currently do think that the world is flat. So,
but
his linchpin is not helping. His linchpin is not the reason why we know that the world is not flat, but at least he admits that.
The Greeks worked out it was round. Other people worked out it was round. Magellan proved that you could circumnavigate the globe.
There you go, Magellan, right? It was not Christopher Columbus. He said Columbus earlier.
And we have too many technologies that rely on the Earth being an oblate spheroid for it to be any other shape.
Yes. GPS. You know how you get in your car and you have your maps and it, points you toward different things? That's because of GPS. That's because of spherical geometry. And the weird thing about Terrence Howard, too, is he keeps saying, we think that the world is completely Euclidean and we're trying to get away from Euclidean. Well, we wouldn't even have GPS if it wasn't for non-Euclidean geometry. Non-Euclidean geometry has existed since the 1800s. Like, this is not a new thing.
Yeah, well, it took a while for me to accept that you can have 3 90-degree angles in a triangle, but in spherical geometry.
Absolutely.
And then I think it prompted a comment from me like, this is why H.P. Lovecraft told you to stay away from non-Euclidean geometry.
There's a little more for us to take into consideration because this is real. This, and this is up a 3-dimensional image up against a 2-dimensional background. Can you imagine?
Oh, for heaven's sake.
No, it's not. Wait, that was a 3-dimensional background. What's going on here? He can't even get his dimensions right.
And they were both 2-dimensional representations of 3-dimensional images. I don't think Mr. Howard knows how monitors work.
I don't think he knows what dimensions are.
A 4-dimensional image up against a 3-dimensional.
Whoa.
Wait, what?
What does he think a 4-dimensional image is?
I mean, I think they do technically exist in math, but
what does he think that means? Because I guarantee you it's not what it actually is.
I don't know what he thinks it means. He's probably thinking of time travel, where basically Einstein theorized that space-time is.
I think his outfit is 4-dimensional. By the way, I just love the collar, the vest. It's great.
I think it's someone trying to say, how can I look like I'm not dressing up while trying to dress up? Because honestly, it has a very casual look, but it looks like he's trying not to be.
Background, how much clearer that will become. But I say all of this for anybody that might be questioning is it worth your time or not. I guess
it's not.
And
it's not.
It's not worth
the money. $25,000 to try to build a drone, and besides all the space shit, which I think that like the actual drone engineers and designers that like tuned into this this original live stream have completely zoned out now because they've been talking about the galaxy and Saturn and whatever the hell in his Blender animations. What does that have to do with drones at all is my question.
I have no idea. But honestly, this is the type of disorganized thinking that you would find in people who are on acid trips and suffering from certain mental illnesses where they're seeing connections no one else sees.
All I need is one of you to try, and we'll see what happens.
Well, we're coming up on the end of the hour. I think we should wrap up with, well, we're not quite wrap up yet, but there are definitely some people in the chat who are not interested. I want to hear from James about some of the people who are interested, because we actually already have some people who are either inspired or feel that the prize is worth their time. James, how many people have entered the contest so far?
Let me see. So far, there are 12. We got a couple that applied during the stream, so that's great. And
Okay.
and that's that.
Is that because you were offering free rides at the carnival? Okay, most people probably aren't going to get that reference.
That's what what we're looking for. I mean, anytime you know that you're moving in the right direction. When you're swimming upstream. It's and
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
You know that you're moving in the right direction when you're swimming upstream?
You know that you're doing something right when every single person disagrees with you. Not really. Not really.
If everyone's telling me that me writing one... I mean, there are times like I think
You know your program works well when you got a lot of syntax errors.
Well, I was thinking that, like, I was trying to demonstrate that 2 plus 2 can equal 5 for sufficiently large values of 2. And I was trying to say, yeah, the computer's doing the math here correctly. And they're like, no, it's not. It's like, yeah, it is. And I had to explain what certain math functions did, and how truncate works. Because I was basically, it's a way to try to introduce them the idea that you
and I can show everyone how 2 plus 2 could equal 0 in the integers modulo 4 and like cyclic operations, but that's not what Terrence Howard is talking about. Like, let's again make that connection here where he's saying things that could possibly make sense, but he's not saying them the right way.
Yeah, and 1 plus 1 equals 1 in Boolean algebra too.
Exactly.
So does 1 times 1 though.
Some people are going to say, oh, this isn't worth the money, or that's not a lot of money, or it's going to take a bazillion hours to do this. That's okay to think that way. But, you got to keep in mind that we're looking for a longer term relationship. We want someone who hasn't lost that sense of wonder, who just wants to see how deep the rabbit hole goes, so that's just kind of in a sense, a down payment on wherever this thing takes us,
But this drone has been made. I don't know if he actually paid anyone.
Yeah, and then where is this long-term relationship? And where is this $100 billion company that he keeps talking about?
Yeah, I don't think it was ever going to be $100 billion.
And and we know that this project will speak to the people that it needs to speak to, and it's okay if I've seen a lot of the comments as well rolling in as I've been sitting here, and that's okay. People don't have to think, and DJ puts it the best way possible. Terrence is pointing at something, and this is this is an ongoing process of discovery, and it's nothing is has congealed.
Terrence is pointing at a warning sign on a beach that says, don't swim riptide currents, and then saying, let's go diving.
To the point where we know exactly everything about all of this. We're just like, hey, you know what? We've hit our technical limits amongst the team, and we need to bring somebody in who's open-minded enough to make this happen, because we want to see what happens next. And and thankfully, we've got, about a dozen.
Well, if your technical limits are someone who dropped out of college after the first semester, possibly because
he's like, we've reached our limit, so we're going to go ahead and find someone who knows what the hell they're doing.
Well, to be fair, you can probably build things and learn engineering on your own, but Terrence Howard didn't even do that.
Terrence Howard didn't even learn first grade math.
Because autodidacts exist, but they're rare.
People now, and all of them seem talented and qualified, and they all have a lot of really interesting things to say, and it's great. We're off to a good start. and, and it's buy the ticket, take the ride. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like a challenge to see if we can collectively solve it.
And I've been making obscure references to Something Wicked This Way Comes, and then he does it on his own.
Problem is a collective mind working towards one thing to solve one problem.
Yeah.
Right.
We are the Borg. 1 × 1 = 2.
Yeah, let's get a bunch of people to solve one problem. Usually as a mathematician in my day, I can be one person solving several problems. Instead, let's get a bunch of people together to solve one problem. Very efficient.
It's kind of off topic, but I was wondering, did Gödel ever say anything about the identity principle?
Gödel. So Gödel. Yeah, I mean, he's Swedish, but Gödel. A lot of people. Okay, it's like quantum. Remember earlier we talked about quantum. We talked about energy. We talked about people exploit it. People think about Gödel's incompleteness theorems, and they don't understand what they are, for one. And they try to think. They try to make the argument that math is incomplete. Gödel proved it. All Gödel really proved was that you can't have self-referential statements that prove their own consistency. I can't say something like, this statement is false, because it doesn't make any sense. You don't have enough context. So all Gödel really proved with incompleteness was you can't prove the consistency of Peano arithmetic or of ZFC or of with or without the axiom of choice, with only using the rules of ZFC, So it's like you can't use a logical axiomatic system to prove the consistency of a logical axiomatic system. You have to go outside of that. It's self-reference, Like I was asking ChatGPT. I was like, what was I saying? I was like, I made a prompt to ChatGPT and I was like, what is this sentence about? Confuse the hell out of it. Because you can't say, what is this sentence about? Because you're referring to the sentence that it's about. You can't go back and reference itself. You know what I mean?
I would love to see the graphs it used to solve that one.
And you mentioned recursion earlier. Like recursion does reference itself. Like you can have a recursive function that calls itself inside of the body of itself. But what you have to do is you have to have a base case. You have to have something that stops the recursion, right? So, and maybe we're getting a little too off topic here, a little too above people's heads, but I don't know. People that watch your channel, people that watch my channel, I feel like they can understand that. Like with computer science, yes, you can have self-referential statements. And in fact, there's a lot of object-oriented languages. Like I primarily teach Java.
Python.
Great. Self, right? Self or this or you can have things that refer to themselves, and that makes perfect sense. But you can't have a system of logic that is very well organized, that's based on first order logic, where it's got a set of rules. You can't have it prove its own consistency.
Yeah.
So all Gödel really said was, we can't prove the consistency of something by using only that thing.
And I was just asking because Terrence Howard said it's like, Gödel said, complained about the incompleteness theorem, or sorry, not the incompleteness theorem, the identity property. I'm like, I could not find anything that says he even talked about it.
No, not at all. The identity property is very well established. And the identity property, it's so funny because he complains so much about the identity property. There's actually two identity properties in mathematics. There's the fact that anything times 1 equals itself.
Yeah, the identity.
Yeah,
which is the identity property of multiplication.
For multiplication, yeah. And then there's the fact that anything plus 0 equals itself. And if you ask a child, let me just say apples, because everyone always says apples. I'm like, if I have 0 apple, if I have 1 apple and I add 0 more apples to that bundle of apples, how many apples do I have? Well, you still got 1. A child can understand that. The fact that Terrence Howard argues against the identity property is one of the most ridiculous things that he ever does. And it has nothing at all to do with Gödel's incompleteness theorems, which he does have 2 of. And anyone that wants to go out and research this, it is spelled Godel.
With an umlaut over the O.
Yeah, exactly. Just like my name is De La Pena. Yeah. But people still call me on the phone and say, hey, is Mr. De La Pena there? But, I don't know if we want to go to the end of the stream or if people are getting tired of this already. It's already been about 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say it's midnight here, so I don't know if you're getting tired. But
a little bit, but.
So if we can go to the end of the stream and just finish it since we're about 12.
Up to you.
Well, let's see if we'll go at least until they start advertising, because that's what they usually do.
Yeah,
the prize money is just the North Star. You know what I mean? What it's about is the journey and the folks that choose to take it. This is just something for them to work towards while they, work on their, area of discovery.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I was brought there for one reason, and that's, that once you get involved with the linchpin, once you tap onto truth, that's you can't let it go, and it doesn't let you go. Everything you're looking at here is literally the flower of life, which they've built the entire pentagonal or the Platonic solids from misinterpreting this flower of life and drawing straight lines where these spheres, these circles intersected. And the only approach
is so ridiculous, because his entire drone is built on straight lines. Look at the thing right in front of him. What's that made of? Straight lines.
Well, he also thinks straight line motion can't exist, so. And straight lines,
the natural geometry, and put the pieces together according to universal ratios. And the universe, applauded and kept.
I would also like to point out the Platonic solids were built by playing around with right triangles, but I'm sure Mr. Howard doesn't care.
Kept giving me more and more. So this is literally, if you want to know another alternative to what you've been taught, if you want to see what the universe perspective is on a given thing, come and take this walk with us, which you find will blow your mind and everyone else's mind that
There's a question in the chat about how you're going to control it with only a 4 degree of freedom controller, and one answer to that is that
besides it's 4 degree of controller.
The other thing is there are 6 degree of freedom controllers that exist. Another solution that I've heard people propose is that you use a momentary switch. So when the momentary switch is down, you're translating. When the momentary switch is up, you're rotating. But again, the point is the contest.
It's like binary. It's like when you have a 1 or a 0 in the front of a signed versus an unsigned variable. It's like the leading bit, whether it's 1 or a 0, is indicating the negative or the positive sign.
Yeah, I can't believe how long it took me to get how they do that. And then, just because it's like I wasn't quite grasping, it's like, oh yeah, this is pretty simple. Why was I having such a hard time with this when I finally got it?
I didn't know how to. I'm inspired by that problem and know how to solve it. Okay, let's see. If you want more details about the contest, the website is, let me bring up the website here. It is terryslinchpins.com.
All right,
I think this website is still live. The contest is over, but I think the website is still live. If everyone wants to go check it out, please do.
All right, I think that's a good place to stop, because this is just advertising a contest that's no longer in place.
Yeah. And you know what? This was super fun. I had so much fun. Thanks for inviting me on your live. I am kind of tuckered out now.
So thanks for coming on. If you want to do this again sometime, let me know. I'm sure we'll find someone even more entertaining than Terrence Howard at some point.
I don't know if there's anybody out there that could possibly be more entertaining than Terrence Howard. But
Young Pharaoh was pretty close, but he wasn't a math person. He was more just really bad with technology.
But it's so funny, the fact that he knows nothing about math. He knows nothing about writing. His book is just trash. And he knows nothing about drones. And it's like, does he know anything? Well, I mean, besides acting, he's a decent actor, I guess. I liked Hustle and Flow.
And apparently he's read a lot of like obscure new age figures like Zachariah Sitchin.
He's just latched on to everything, you know. He tries to be like a little bit Christian, a little bit Buddhist, a little bit New Age, a little bit spirit science. His Joe Rogan appearance was the reason why my channel blew up in the first place, besides the Oxford stuff. But thanks for inviting me on. I am going to once again shamelessly plug my own channel.
Oh, feel free to do that.
It is James De La Pena, which I might change the name of it to maybe like James Del, just because people can't pronounce De La Pena. And yeah, like I will probably make more videos about him myself because it's fun for me. People have been criticizing sometimes, like people that criticize it. Well, why do you make these videos? Like we all know he's wrong, blah blah. I do it for my own entertainment. I find it to be endlessly hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and there are also sometimes it's like there's a creationist, I can't find the clip, who confused like 1 in 10 to the 70th odd with like or 10 to the 70th power odds with 10 to the negative 70th power odds. It's like you're only off by 140 orders of magnitude.
I'm like, that's a pretty different number there. Yeah. But no. Thanks a lot. It's been great. I am pretty tired. I woke up at about 5 this morning. So happy spring break to everyone out there.
All right. And go check out his channel. Please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel.
Absolutely.
Hopefully I will get back to more educational content. And this week I was actually planning on doing a thing on technology tech connections who was kind of right but went off the rails about some computer stuff, because Technology Connections doesn't really cover computer stuff, but it's an interesting channel otherwise.
What was that? It was a channel that like what was his name? That bald dude that kind of went off the rails. Tech Review. What was it? Tech Review USA or something?
I have not heard of that one. I'll go see if
Yeah.
well,
yeah, it's been fun. I'm gonna hop off, but
all right.
this has been very fun. And I wish you the best of luck. And I'm gonna try to get some sleep this break.
And go out and write some code.
Go out and write some code.